Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the session of the Indo-American Arts Council's 2024 Literary Festival, where literature, culture, and intellectual discourse converge. IAAC, as you all may know, is an esteemed non-profit organization that has been providing a platform for the arts and literature in New York for several years now. This session has been organized in collaboration with the Prabha Khaitan Foundation as part of their Right Circle series. The Prabha Khaitan Foundation is a non-profit trust founded by the late Dr. Prabha Khaitan in the early 1980s and is dedicated to socio-cultural welfare and humanitarian causes. Based in Kolkata, the foundation is dedicated to promoting performing arts, culture, education, literature, gender equality, women's empowerment, and social welfare projects in India. For this year's literary festival, IAAC has brought together writers and poets from around the world. One of the most remarkable aspects of this festival is that all sessions are free to the public, allowing literature enthusiasts to come together and immerse themselves in the beauty and power of the written word. Today, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce the very accomplished Ambassador Lakshmi Puri, who will be talking about her debut novel, Swallowing the Sun. Ambassador Puri has been an Indian Foreign Service diplomat for 28 years. She was India's ambassador to Hungary, while also concurrently accredited to Bosnia and Herzegovina. She has also served in leadership positions at the United Nations for 15 years, most recently as Assistant Secretary General. She was a leader in the first global organization to promote gender equality, UN Women, for 7 foundational years. Ambassador Puri is a recipient of the Eleanor Roosevelt Award for Human Rights. Her debut novel, Swallowing the Sun, is an epic feat of remembering and storytelling. Through the eyes of its feisty young heroine, Malati, this novel recreates one of the most tumultuous periods in modern Indian history, the struggle for independence. Malati's steeliness and fearlessness enable her to defy the constricting patriarchal traditions of her time and take on all those who try to cow her down. Set against the backdrop of bustling Bombay, Malati's journey is both captivating and enlightening. Ambassador Puri will be in conversation with Roopa Unnikrishnan, a champion sports shooter, innovation consultant, and author based in New York City. She serves as the Chief Innovation Officer of IDEX Corporation, an industrials, critical components, and life sciences company. Roopa is an Arjuna Award winner who in 1998 was the first Indian woman to ever win a gold medal at the Commonwealth Games in rifle shooting. Wow. A Rhodes Scholar with an MPhil and an MBA from the University of Oxford, she's also a published poet. Roopa is currently working on a literary novel herself. So without further ado, let's delve deeper into Swallowing the Sun. Ambassador Puri, Roopa, over to you.
Well deserved. It's such an honor to be here, and thank you all for coming here and joining us for the Fireside Chat. The book from you earlier this year, and so got the chance to read the book. Thank you again. Do you mind? Firstly, thank you, and I wondered if you want to share a few words about.
Well, thank you very much to the Indo-American Arts Council, Prabha Khaitan Foundation, for hosting me here. And it's a privilege to be always back in New York City, where I've spent some 9 years and where my daughters are settled. So it's a kind of home for me, and wonderful to be in conversation with you, Roopa. Honored that it's you, and look forward to discussing this novel, which is very much a labor of love, as much as it is my first foray into the literary world.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes, and what a foray it is. So, to those of you who haven't yet had the chance to read the book, I think I'll give you a quick précis and go from there. So it's been, as you saw, critically acclaimed, and it's a national bestseller already. And it's a stunning exploration of love, valor, India, and it's in the construct and context of India's struggle for independence, seen through the eyes of 3 generations of women, especially the protagonist, the feisty young Malati. So it captures the exhilarating highs and lows of that time in India. Malati's steeliness and fearlessness enable her to defy the constricting patriarchal traditions that she is immured in. As a young girl, it starts in a fascinating way. As a young girl, she fights and defeats a school bully in her village school in Maharashtra. And from then, you get to see the role that her progressive father plays, her sisterly relationship with Kamala, and how she constantly pushes boundaries while still sort of navigating in a way that is very Indian and very much a part of the culture that she comes from. She's one of the first women in her family to go to college. She becomes a pioneering lawyer and strikes out on her own. She ends up in Bombay. It's a hotbed of political ferment, and she's whirled up in irresistible currents and the excitement of battle for independence. And through all of this, of course, there's a love story as well, and that is quite fascinating, interesting. I mean, I will come to it, but I kept feeling the pulls and pushes of ambiguity and excitement. This is an original novel, truly original novel, and as the one of the quotes said, it'll be remembered as one of the most powerful debuts of an Indian writer in the 21st century. So, very excited to get us started on this.
Thank you.
Of course, and I'll start with a couple of questions. I will be making sure that we take time at the end of this session for Q&A, and I know there are folks here who are chock-a-block with questions already, and so we'll get to that. So let me start with, it's a multi-genre novel, right? With set during independence. It tells the story of Malati, but there's also a sense that it sort of talks about the DNA of those times. So can you share the significance and your motivations for weaving in history and literature? You can actually have literature from multiple. It's not just Indian literature. You hear from multiple sort of perspectives. So how did you combine all of these to create, this fabulous book?
Thank you. I'm a history student and a history buff. And also, history has been always a reservoir of wisdom for diplomats. So from that perspective, I've looked at our freedom struggle, India's freedom struggle, as one of the, of course, very tumultuous period, but also one of the most transformative and epochal freedom movements, which had a global impact and was an inspiration for decolonization in Africa, Asia, and even East Europe. So I thought that this is a period that needs to be memorialized and brought alive to young people today, because it has, it has an eternal relevance. So I wanted to also focus on the young people who were involved in the freedom struggle, not the Gandhis and the Nehrus and Malviyas and Annie Besant, whom I bring into the novel as in cameo roles. But I also wanted to bring the focus on young people who are making their maybe small, maybe big contributions, but they are unsung heroes and sheroes. And I want to emphasize the sheroes because the role of women in the freedom struggle has been neglected, ignored, and not recognized. So I wanted to bring that aspect. How did they really contribute? And what I wanted to also show was that young people today must learn from these young people and be as engaged as they were in matters beyond themselves, in the social realm, in the national realm. And it's about paying my tribute to my parents. It's not a biography. And what my dear friend Maleshri Lal said in a poem, I'm in a way that blessing I wanted to live. She says, may you honor your ancestors whose genes sleep deep within you. Those who fought for freedom and kinship, for little women and men such as you. So that is the spirit in which I wrote about that period. And also I was born to them when they were 45. So I in a way lived in that era through their eyes. So it's about memories, it's about epiphanies, it's an act of creation, it's fiction to bring to life and to bring out the truths. And it is, I think, very much something that resonates. It's a historical fiction, but it's very contemporary. It resonates with the present. Certainly the present in India, but also elsewhere. Freedom seeking, justice seeking, truth seeking people everywhere. And it's about showing how every effort matters to make the larger impact for humanity.
Certainly relevant today.
Yes.
So there was a couple of questions even as we were waiting for everyone to come in about your surreal, pithy, interesting title. Can you tell us what significance it has for the themes in this book?
Yes, so this is taken from Muktabai's Saint Muktabai, teenage woman saint from Maharashtra, who is now worshipped as Adi Devi, Adi Shakti, and Chandi Devi, and there are now temples in her name. She died when she was barely 18, but she has written 41 verses, and she was actually, she fascinated me because she actually had followers. So, I always talk, as UN Women, you can imagine, I always talk about women-led development, women-led mysticism. So in her case, it was women-led spiritualism. And this particular verse of hers always fascinated me. And as I've said in my author's note, it possessed me. And this is a verse which in Marathi goes like this. Mungi udali akashi, tine ghille suryashi, thor navlav zhala, Vansaputra prasavla, vinchu patala sizai, shesh matha bandi pai, mashi vyali ghar zali, dekhuni muktai hasli. The ant flies into the sky. She swallows the sun. Another miracle. A barren woman gives birth to a son. The scorpion burrows down to the nether realms. The snake king Shesha bows at its feet. The housefly begets a hawk. Muktabai sees, Muktabai laughs. So all these are miracles that she envisions that come provided you dare, you have faith, and you persist. So the impossible seems impossible only until it becomes possible through your faith and effort and daring. So that is the theme that runs across like a thread through the other themes of the book, and the, as you said, there's this epic love story, the grand romance. Many people say that's the kind of thing that has not been written in recent times. And then there is the freedom struggle itself. What an audacious idea it was, even in the 1920s and 30s, to imagine that. And you know, there is a chapter that you have flagged where these young people wonder, and they talk about how Lord Irwin said that India will be ready for freedom in 600 years. So that was an audacious idea. So even at the national level, the leaders, they tried to achieve the impossible, and they did. So, and my characters similarly are driven by this idea that they will do something extraordinary, they will break boundaries. So that is the theme, and it manifests itself, of course, in other related themes like metamorphosis, how people transform themselves, as the girls did, coming from a village, and then they become Elphinstonians, then they become teachers in Banaras Hindu University. So, that kind of metamorphosis, the fight between destiny and free will, the contest between all of that. So it runs through all, and then the coming of age. It's a coming of age novel. So how young people try to do the impossible. And I was mentioning earlier about the freedom struggle and the young people there. It is also a time of great confluence of 4 different forces. A time when there was a civilizational reawakening, there was a cultural efflorescence, which Marathi particularly, and this is perhaps the first novel, and that's why the Abhanga is also related. This is perhaps the first novel, many people say, in English by an Indian writer, which draws upon the great, which mines the seams of Marathi literature and culture. Because so much has been written about Bengali and other South Indian and other literatures and cultures, but this is the first time, and it was a time of that efflorescence. And also these young people were very much a part of social transformation and reform, fighting casteism and inequality. So all of that is very much part of this theme of achieving the impossible and coming together.
So, can I ask you? So, reviewers have remarked about how your book sings, right? And there's so many great themes as you just expounded out.
Yes.
So, you've actually managed to weave poetry not just in that foreword, but throughout your book. Are you at heart a poet? And can you tell us why and how you use poetry in the novel?
Indeed, I was very much inclined towards poetry, love poetry, but also I was brought up in a home which was inhabited by poets and also poetry loving and literature loving parents. But particularly my father, and I always use the analogy of Ranjit Hoskote's poem on poets, and he said, the first line of which says that he was married to bird song. So I can say that about my father, that indeed he was married to birdsong. He was himself a poet and a playwright in his young days. Then of course it fell by the wayside, but he was he was part of this great literary circle that was then a very fecund, literary world that was coming up in Bombay, and poets like Yashwant and Balkavi and everyone. So he had this book of poems which he had inscribed to me. This was, I want to show, but of course I thought there would be some camera, but here it is. This is the first, I've just taken a photostat of it, but this is the first page of a 1926 transcript of his book of poems, which he electrostated for me in 1983 for Lakshmi. Yes, it says for Lakshmi, yes. So he used to read out to us poetry every evening, and every poem from that book was sung in a different tune, recited, half sung. So I will try and, so what I did was to pick some of those poems and, weave them into the book. Threads of poetry into this book, Bernard Singe, and also the noblest emotions, the passion, can be best expressed. So that's the reason you have so much poetry in this, but I'm told that it is quite seamlessly woven into the narrative. So this is the first poem, which is also in the first page of this book, in my father's handwriting, is this Prem Lake. First page in this, it's called Prem Lake, and it is to the evening goddess. And the scene is that Guru, the hero, and Malti, the heroine, they are sitting together on the beach, and he makes his first declaration of love to her and evokes this poem, and they write this poem on the wet sand even as he is reciting it. So, मेघांचे करी भूर्ज पत्र धरुनी अस्तांजलि प्रत्ययी स्वर्गीचे नवलेख कुंकुम रसे ती सांध्य देवीली रात्री शांत गभीर अंबुनिधिजा आनील पृष्ठावरी लज्जालेखली विकंपित करे ती तारका सुंदरी सारे ते बगलेख तुच्छ गमती चित्ताची आलोचनी तिचा क्षयलेख एकच उभा मी मग्न पारायणी. So just a translation. Perennial witness grand, her pen dipped in the red sap of my love infinite. The evening goddess writes a new missive exquisite. With enchanting shyness, her cheeks suffused. My beloved rests her lotus head on my chest bemused. She creates our love epistles mystique, in the poetic language of our breaths unique. All those other lyrical outpourings, magnificent in my heart's eyes, seem so trivial and insignificant, for I am the sole, rapt and discerning reader vernal in the universe of this, my beloved's love letter eternal. And then the mood changes, because 7 years later, after a very long, what was then called courtship, and now called relationship, they finally get married. They run away to Nainital and they have an Arya Samaj wedding. And on their nuptial night, he recites a poem about unfulfilled love. So she says, but why this poem on such a night when we have finally been, we are being reunited. We are being united. So he says, no, just for us to remember that it may not have happened. So it's a very beautiful poem by Madhav Julian. एकत्र गुंफून जीवित धागे प्रीतीचे नर्तन नाचलो मागे वाजत जंगल मंगल गान कड्यातून खाली लोटून प्राण हो निकाशाय रंग प्रेमाने बेहोश दंग पाहुगे समाधी सागरियन अजून संपेना वैसाख हन. So pulsating with life intertwined, we together flowed, the gift of the dance of love once bestowed. A solitary pond, muddied and parched now I stand, searching for my beloved in this wasteland. And then it comes to the end where he's all enthused, but what happens? While we like crazed minstrels sing an auspicious song, amazed and rendered unconscious by love newborn, the saffron color of passion we must don, throwing ourselves down from the edge. To surrender our life force we earnestly pledge. Then we will finally attain our union with the ocean supreme. But alas, ending the cursed season of Vaishak remains but a dream. So these are some of the, and then there is, of course, we have Tukaram, Abhangas, we have Natya Sangeet, the great Marathi theatre movement that happened, and the musical. So a lot of songs from that. There are other songs for children, and there is also the patriotic. Veer Savarkar's poems have been invoked, and also a very beautiful poem by Yashwant after these young people have gone scot-free after having done a play, a theatre of resistance in Elphinstone College, and they come out and in Veer Rasa, they come out and they sing this together. And it is a poem by the great poet Yashwant. वाडुदे कारागृहाच्या भिंतीची उंची किती मनमना नाही शिती भिंतीच्या उंचीत राये काय आत्मा कोंडुनी मुक्त तो रात्रंदिनी भक्तीला जो पुरा आला वाढतो तो अंतरी पायरी ने पायरी. So let the walls of the prison grow higher and higher. My strong heart will never be shaken or tire. My patriotic soul can never be kept in thrall. It's free to roam in the day and at nightfall. My devotion to my motherland rises within me, step by step, like flood waters gushing to be free.
As you can imagine, I read Melodiously Blend, but also as a writer, right? And
yes, I was very excited to hear that you're working on a novel.
It's been an interesting time, and I'd love to hear how long this was. I know all books are works of love and passion.
Yes.
But tell me, when you write, you actually do have to think of your book also as a construction, an engineering, architectural effort, right? You're putting pieces together, you're engaging, you take your poems, you sort of frame them out. And there's another piece in here which you use deftly, which is love letters.
Yes.
And to get you all steeped into this book, I can tell you there are love letters that engage in a playful manner. There are love letters that get used as a method of let's say, reinforcing the relationship. There's a found half-written letter which becomes a piece of work that results in jealousy. But you also have, in your foreword, you talk about your parents and finding your father's love letters and to your mother. So you have quite a few of these chapters. So do you feel like, when did you start imagining the role of love letters in your book, and what did it feel like writing them?
Yes. No, so I discovered these love letters, 148 of them that subsisted, survived all those years, because they were written by my father and to my mother when they were separated, first as lovers and later even after marriage. They lived separately for some time till he got a job, and it was they came together. So when I found them, it was a real eureka moment, and I said, these have to be incorporated into the novel. That I was already, this was a book wanting to be written for decades in my mind. And so when I found this was a treasure trove, and it unveiled the whole period to me so well, their relationship, but also society, what it was like for a young woman to work, how it was for these young men and women to be finding themselves. So it's a wonderful discovery, but also it is something that I myself, my generation, has been very much attached to this form of communication. That's the only form of communication we had. In fact, even up until when my daughter came here Himani came here as a 16-year-old, I remember we used to send letters through the diplomatic bag to be posted to her in Philadelphia. We didn't have, we could, barely make phone calls, trunk calls then. So, this is a beautiful, the most, sensitive and a wonderful way of reaching out to people. And so, in the novel, what I have done is I have used only a small fraction, because that's what my editor, David Davidar, allowed me. If left to me, I would have used many more. I had to cut down. And so I have used some of the letters, but some I have imagined. So I will leave it to the readers to decipher which are real and which are imagined. So let me just read a para about the letters first. What they meant to Malti and to Guru. So alive were Guru's letters, that they threatened to incarnate into Malti's alter ego, teasing her mind with riddles about the universe, dipping into her soul in contemplation, whispering confidences into her ears, serenading her unabashedly, touching her body with the feather of his words. By the way, some of the letters are truly of the border on the erotic.
Yes, that's the word.
Then giving advice when she was in a quandary, affirming her actions when she took adventurous decisions, sharing her disappointment at setbacks and yet not allowing her to rue her mistakes. So this is when she was, you can imagine 100 years ago, a young woman going to Banaras alone, setting up house, teaching at the Mahila Mahavidyalaya, and finding herself alone. It was audacious, and in that context, she had this, Guru's letters, which sometimes she found to be, very insistent and overwhelming, but they were a source of great strength. So let me just give a typical letter, which is, "Do write to me, Malti. I do not mind what you write. There are things and things to write of. Besides, there is that sweetest thing, the fountainhead of all my fondest thoughts and highest emotions, yourself. Your own doings, Malti, would be of the greatest interest to me, be they ever so trifling. I have done nothing here since you left but think of you, and thirst for your letters as a nectar of life immortal." Then he says, complaining. So he writes about letters and writes letters, but also about letters. "I do my usual pilgrimage to the letterbox and feel crestfallen when your letters do not arrive. I see this as a punishment for my coldness and formality, perhaps, for I deserve no better than death, cold silence, or which sluggishly arrives the next morning, if at all. A troubled day, a sleepless night, an anxious heart, and an ailing body. That is all my gain, dear Malti. How can you be so superbly careless, Malti, when I am so punctiliously careful?" These are originals.
That's interesting.
In fact, I am very much tempted, and many people have told me that I should have a separate book on the letters,
Right.
or do some kind of a play like Tumhari Amrita was done. I don't know. Some of you may be knowing about it.
I would recommend that. So I'll sort of switch to some of the themes you engage around. So we, of course, now have a sense of Malti and her journey, but you have a couple of other characters who engage around empowerment, hunting, and much to her detriment. You have Veena, who's Malati's niece, who refuses to stay with the person that she's married to because it was, as you can imagine, an arranged marriage. And she goes on to become a star and called Tara appropriately, and which is star in Hindi and I assume Marathi too. But her method of empowerment is to both take on that role, but she lives with a married man. She decides then she wants to go off and be a sannyas. So these are very interesting twists to the plot. So I'll ask the question around how you engage there, appropriate since you did work in You and Women. But there are points where I remember I sort of closed the book and walked away, and then had to come back because Malati decides to step away from her studies so that she can support Guru, for example. And I was like, I can't believe she's done that.
Yes.
And so talk to me about, as you thought about empowerment and wanting to show that, how did you peel that onion a little?
No, absolutely. Most of my women characters, from the widow Ambutai, who abandons her child or leaves her child with Baba, that is Malti's father, and disappears, and then redeems herself, and also avenges her tormentor in the end. So from Ambutai, as you said, Sarla, she is my favorite character. The one who is the daughter of Malti's brother-in-law, from the first marriage, and who comes in and out of love or infatuation, whatever you may call it, always unrequited, and finally gets married, and then she must do something extraordinary. So she's this, she goes into this role of an Artemis. As you said, I draw upon Greek mythology as well. So she's first the Persephone. She sees herself as a victim, as a Persephone, and later as Artemis. And then, there is a tragic end to her. But she dares. So all of these women, and Penvina, there's Shaila, and also my British characters. By the way, quite a few are British characters, as that period is very much the British Raj. And so the British characters themselves are the, Miss Crawford, and then Dorothy. So all of these are really what Toni Morrison calls outlaw women, and Maya Angelou calls phenomenal women, and I call Muktabai's ants. So let me read out. So the idea, as I said, was that these women break boundaries. They overcome the limitations of their circumstances, and whether they meet with triumph or tragedy, they try. So that's the spirit in which. And then there is, of course, the other aspect about the men in their lives, but I think I'll come to that a little later. Let me read a passage from a passage that talks about, it's from the chapter called Metamorphosis, and it says, Malti is almost going to be suspended from college because she has been bold enough to declare that she looks forward to the end of British imperialism, and that she says some strong words publicly in class, and her professor, who's otherwise very liberal, calls her in and says that, look, I'm letting you go this time, but you have to be more careful, publicly declaring in Elphinstone College that you are anti-Raj and anti-British is not something that will be tolerated. So her thoughts as she comes out, Malti and Kamla had come to believe that they were living in Bombay at a time when everything was being turned inside out and upside down, the improbable Muktabai way. It was as if the small sweet elchi bananas grew with their ivory-colored, fragrant, sweet, pulpy flesh outside, enveloping their thin, yellow, blotchy skin inside. It was as if the Indian tiger had come out of the forest and sat supping with brown coolies at the starched linen-covered table in the Gymkhana Club of Bombay, being served by British sahibs in red and white uniforms, doubling over to please the natives. It was as if the frail Indian ascetic, with nothing but the sword of his soul force, the shield of his khadi loincloth, and the cannon fire of the Indian masses was breaching the iron and stone battlements of the great British Empire, riding on the waves of his tremulous voice. They cherished their freedom to become part of this miracle making, even if as a tiny particle. They did not want to lose that privilege.
It's interesting. You treat the British characters with complexity. I could imagine the temptation to make them pretty unidimensional, but you've actually done an amazing job of finding sympathetic British characters in this story.
Yes, indeed. That is also partly because what my parents told me. Their professors were very liberal, and so there is a part where Professor Atkinson in their law college tasks them with dissertations or to come up with a package of reforms that would lead to freedom for India and self-rule. And one of them is given the accelerated path, and the other one the longer path. So the very fact that he sends those on to, at that time, I think it was the Viceroy was, to the Viceroy, Lord Irwin, none other than Lord Irwin, who believed that it would take 600 years for us to gain freedom. So, that was throughout. They were great admirers of their British professors. So somehow the academia was sympathetic to India's freedom. Also, some of the other characters, Miss Crawford and Dorothy, as later on in Simla. Yes.
So I'm being cognizant of time. So we've had a great show. We've had poetry, we've had letter writing, reading. I'll ask one question, and then I think I should open it up. Yes, tradition versus modernity, because towards the end, there's an element. I come to portray these internal struggles. What were you drawing from there?
Okay, let me first of all say that it was what is tradition yesterday. No, what was modernity yesterday is tradition today, and so on. And what is modernity today becomes tradition in the next generation. So what I have tried to do in the novel is to use tradition, interpret tradition in a way that it changes, and I've learned this in UN Women. If you want to do advocacy, you want to change mindsets, you want to change social norms, you have to use tradition in the best way possible. And so I want to give 3 examples. And of course I love the character Guru, as have many. But of course, readers read the book differently. But Guru is Guru, Baba, and also Malak to some extent. They are very enlightened men, women empowering in so many ways, and overcoming their patriarchal conditioning to a large extent. So here now there are 3 aspects that I want to highlight. The first one is this whole idea in India of deification of women.
Right.
The goddesses, concept of goddesses, how to use that to bring across the message of women's empowerment and women's rights. So Baba uses, first, if you remember the scene in the village when he's trying to advocate for girls to go to school, he invokes the image of Saraswati. if you see Saraswati as a symbol of knowledge, how can you deny girls who are but little Saraswatis from, being given this gift of knowledge? So, and then he tells the girls that you can be Lakshmi, you can be Parvati, you can be Saraswati if you try, if you and you set yourself mind to it. And then they say, but men can come in the way. But he says, yes, but there will be people like me who will take you forward. And then there is also this, the other aspect about Guru, and I want to read the poem that I have composed, because some of the others are translations, including, of course, of Kalidas. I forgot to mention Kalidas being Meghdut and others. So I want to read Guru's poem, which he dedicates to Malti, and where he puts her on a pedestal as a goddess. Madhumalti, you are the goddess, installed in my temple's sanctum sanctorum. To the exhilarating heartbeats of celestial drums, my fevered chanting and joyous limpid songs. And then he goes on to say, your love fills my cup of yearning to be great, for your sake, not for mine. I aspire to reach yonder distant horizons untrammeled and swing back to my cove, where calm inner rivers of happiness flow, meander and rest. I will in turn shield you from non-believers in your divinity. From non-believers in your divinity. We will be iconoclasts in other ways too. Show them we can be and do anything. And then later, when she feels that he has let her down and strayed from being a worshipper, and confronts him, and he says, but I still consider you my goddess. So she says, I am a goddess not because you made me so, but because of who I am and what I did for you. The sacrifice and what you referred to earlier. So, and then one slightly, naughty thing I want to also read out about Sarla. You referred to her. Maybe I'll just say it. So and about tradition, how tradition and modernity. So she complains about her husband not having passion, not showing passion. And so I'll quickly finish this. And then the girls say, but women are not supposed to feel any passion yourself. So she says, no, but who said that? See, Kautilya. And then she quotes Kautilya. You modern women should know what Kautilya said. Kautilya said that women have double the appetite for food than men. They have 8 times the sexual desire. And Kautilya said this, by the way, and she quotes the Sanskrit. And then they have 6 times the courage and twice the astuteness of men.
Equations.
So there you are, tradition being used.
I would have loved to open it up for Q&A. Would you mind if people could come find you later if they wanted to have conversations?
Of course,
Right?
of course.
So
But
before-
have we run out of time?
We have just to run. So why don't we
Started
ask?
late.
Yes.
Can we have 1 or 2 questions now?
Yeah. Okay, so we can do that.
Okay, not allowed. No, not
So
allowed.
we just talked about
No,
superiority.
no.
But anyway, there's nothing more satisfying than to see you become an entrenched stockholder in the literary world,
Thank you.
as you have already done in the diplomatic world. The fact that you may be the backbone of Prime Minister Modi's minister, Murdeshwar Puri, is also a feather in your very wide hat. What amazes me about you is generally courage is subject-based. You seem to go from one topic to another, whether it's diplomacy or literary writing, without fear. So I want to find out why that is. Are you the female version of Shivaji Marathi?
I'll just say that yes, I do uphold. I had a Maratha mother. She was a lioness. We used to be in thrall of.
And I think you have described Malathi as
yes,
those terms.
absolutely.
One more question.
First, because you mentioned abhangs and all that, there's a very famous abhang by Tukaram, I think.
Yes.
That words and words is all the wealth that I have and that I'm dedicating that to you. So you have really showered us with so many wonderful words from ancient to your own. Who did you write this to? Or who, there is a certain, writing a socio-historical novel as a debut novel, because that is considered to be the emblem of the highest form of consciousness. So from that standpoint, I was very impressed with the way, and so I have really numerous questions, but I just wanted to kind of give you that compliment.
Thank you.
What shall we say, take away from this that you want to make sure everyone hears?
That this novel is very much about my belief in whatever the adversity, whatever the limitations, and humanity's perfectibility and hope. And that's very much also, I know we don't have the time, but I thought I could also evoke this B.G. Tilak's poem, which says, Bola havete maze bada. And this is, no need have I of a mirror. Why do I seek a path clearer? Am I not complete and auspicious? And this is very, very much about women. Women, girls being born in India sometimes, and auspicious. The purpose of God's creation felicitous. It matters not to me what is your opinion. I well know my own strength, my own dominion. So that's that kind of, the self-confidence with which we should all be. Of course, it's very much aimed at Indians, but also those of you who have left those shores and have made lives here for yourselves.
So, ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lakshmi, and on behalf of afternoon, and what can I say, Sri Shakti, we all are children of our mothers, and may that brightly shine in all our lives. And on behalf of Prabha Khaitan Foundation, I'd like to call Kathy and Shilpa to please honor Lakshmi and our friend Roopa. Roopa, thank you. And Kathy, thank you for coming from India. And wish you all the best. And Kathy, can you come here? Yes, join this